Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to another episode of our Entitled People, where people apparently think they can do no wrong and that they should always get what they want. So, the first story comes from a subscriber, and it's a story about the time she worked at Kmart as a cashier. The second story features a Karen who pretends to be the owner's daughter to get what she wants. And the third story about an entitled bride-to-be. My friends, I hope you stay for the stories today and do hit that subscribe button for future stories if you like this kind of stuff. Let's dive in. Back in the early 2000s, I got a job working as a cashier at Kmart. This story may have happened 2 decades ago, but this particular day is forever burned into my memory, as I think it deeply wounded, if not killed, my inner optimist. I had just finished my first few days of training and shadowing other cashiers, and today was my first real day. I was finally cut loose. Customers trickled through my line, each as sweet as the one before, slowly calming my nerves. All was right with the world. It was about 5 minutes from my first 15-minute break, and I was dreaming of crazy breadsticks. Slowly but surely, a quite elderly man made his way to my aisle. Let's call him Father Time. I would be doing you all a disservice if I simply said that Father Time looked like a classic super old guy. I have to paint this picture for you because it's personally important to me. I was first taken aback by his size and posture. He was very short and severely hunched over his cane. If you were to straighten him up all the way, I'd probably still be taller than him. He also had a real thin frame with even thinner-looking skin. It was the dead of summer, but he shivered like a chihuahua in February. Slowly, he walked down my aisle. Each movement he made seemed calculated and deliberate. I wasn't sure if he was afraid of tripping and falling over, or was looking for spare change on the ground. His attire did not disappoint me either, and I had all the time in the world to take it in. He had dark brown leather loafers and the whitest socks I've ever seen. He wore crisp, ironed tan dress pants that hiked up to his chest, firmly held in place with both a belt and suspenders. His blue pinstripe short-sleeved dress shirt had more starch in it than a loaf of bread, which he paired with a navy bow tie. His glasses were as thick as Coke bottles, and I'm surprised they were able to stay on his face. Oh, and of course, he topped it all off with a snazzy fedora and a big smile that showed off his ill-fitting dentures. I cannot stress enough how non-threatening this man looked. I said, "Hello, sir. Welcome to Kmart. How may I help you today?" Father Time said, "I would like to buy this." He then carefully handed me a diabetic meal replacement candy bar that we sold near the pharmacy. It certainly was not the one we sold near the registers. I scanned his candy bar, totaled his balance, and said, "Oh, it looks like this is on sale. It will only be 99 cents, sir." His face lit up like he hit the jackpot, and he said, "Oh, I have a coupon." He reached into his pocket and pulled out this meticulously folded piece of paper. I took a glance at it, and it was for $1 off. I perked up too because I was happy for him. Who doesn't like a free candy bar? I scanned the coupon, and this dreadful sound came from the register. You all know that sound. The coupon was rejected. I looked at it more closely and discovered the coupon expired in 1998. I sheepishly looked at Father Time and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but this coupon expired a few years ago." Father Time's grin slowly faded as confusion swept across his face, and he said, "Please try it again, young lady. I just clipped that last Sunday." I shrugged and scanned it again with the same result and said, "I'm sorry, sir, the computer's not letting me apply the coupon. Would you like me to page a manager?" Father Time responded, "I really don't have the time to wait around." He then put his hand on his back and somehow managed to look even more fragile than he already was. He said, "Standing around is a young man's game. Can I just have my candy bar and a penny now, and you sort this out with her later?" Now it was my turn to look confused. I said, "Excuse me, your penny?" Father Time was starting to look annoyed instead. "Yes, it's 99 cents with $1 off. That means you owe me a penny." I was kind of speechless because this was not covered in my training. I told him, "I'm going to have to wait for a manager, sir. I'm pretty sure I do not have the authority to pay you for taking a candy bar." I then reached for the phone and paged my manager. Instead of coming to the register, she called me from another department and said, "Hey, I'm busy in layaway right now. What do you need help with?" I told her, "I have a customer here trying to buy a special candy bar. He has a $1 off coupon for it, but it expired. It's ringing up for 99 cents instead of $2.25, and he wants us to accept the coupon and give him a penny in return. Is that something we can do?" My manager was silent for a moment and probably had the same confused expression that I did. She said, "What? No, that item isn't on sale. It's being discontinued and clearanced out. Even if the coupon was valid, we could not accept it, and we would never give change back on the difference of a coupon. Just politely tell him that." Then I heard it, wham! I reflexively jumped up and screamed. When I turned to face Father Time, I realized that he had hit the counter with his cane and was swinging again to hit me. I don't know if he could hear what the manager was saying or decided that he had waited around too long, but either way, he was furious. I screamed again as I dropped the phone and ducked behind the register. He hit the register with enough force to break the brace used to anchor it to the counter and lift it a little. He was now sweeping the counter with his cane, hitting and knocking over everything displayed as he shouted. He was screaming, "Give me my penny!" Soon I heard the distinct sound of a pair of high heels running full speed, as well as the footsteps of others. Father Time snatched back his cane, grabbed his candy bar, spat in my direction, and stormed out of the store. The manager and a member of loss prevention arrived and found me peeking out past my register, with my entire aisle a complete wreck. By this point I was done with the day, and apparently it was written all over my face. My manager said, "Hey OP, why don't we come back to my office and help me fill out some paperwork and call it a day?" By this point I was shaking worse than Father Time was, and just nodded. We went back and filed a report, and my manager was at a loss for words. A CO worker bought me a soda from the break room, and I just left. I bet I looked like a zombie as I left. I swear I slept the whole day when I got home. I've never been that drained before, and I don't know why I didn't quit right then and there, but the smile on my manager's face when I returned the next day for my shift was priceless. I also got a free lunch at the K Cafe that day, which was the coolest thing ever to my 17-year-old self. Aside from that being a terrifying experience, OP now has a wonderful story to tell for the rest of her life. I've said it once, and I'll say it again. I have mad respect for those who work in retail and have to deal with Karens and crazy people all the time. Imagine going to work and getting attacked by an old man. Oh my goodness. Next story. So, a little backstory on where I work. It's a very small family business where we sell pools and pool chemicals. There are only 2 desks in our office, which can fully see into the showroom, 1 desk for the manager and 1 for me. Also, when I say a small business, I mean it. Normally, it was just me and my mom who's the manager. However, we had just recently hired someone new who was a little older than me. I was 21 at the time, and my new CO worker was 28. My mom had to go pick up some office supplies for us and mail off some bills, so it was just me and my CO worker. We weren't very busy at the time since it was a weekday and fairly close to closing time. So I was sitting at my desk, and he was sitting at the manager's desk since he didn't have one of his own. We were both on our phones, playing around and waiting to hear the door open. We heard the door open, and my CO worker, who we'll just call Matt, started to get up. I told Matt that I'd got this one, so he sat back down. I stood up and saw this lady, Karen, and her kid come in and start walking around. I walked out to the showroom and welcomed them to the store, asking if they needed help finding anything. Karen said, "We're just looking right now. I'll let you know if we have any questions." Her kid responded, "I want a pool toy. Where's the toys at?" I looked at him and said, "Well, the pool toys are right over there in the aisle by the door and on that wall there." I motioned to the wall where all the displays were. Karen said, "I told you that we don't need any help right now." I just stepped back and walked into the office, not wanting any more confrontations this close to closing. They continued looking around for another few minutes when I heard the kid hollering from the front of the store. I looked up and the kid was climbing on our ladder samples, which clearly had neon green signs that said, "Do not climb on." So I walked up and politely told the kid that he couldn't climb on them. Karen, in her Karen self, said something along the lines of, "Don't tell my kid what to do." The kid, who was 10, started crying. I said, "I'm sorry, but it's against company policy to have anyone climbing on them for safety purposes." I pointed at the sign that said "You can't," and Karen said, "Well, you should have made the sign bigger." I'm not the best at containing my frustration, and when I get frustrated at someone, my sarcasm comes out with absolutely zero filter. This kid had been running around our store screaming like a banshee, and I was getting very annoyed. Under my breath, I said, "Well, maybe try using your eyes next time." Karen said, "What did you say to me?" I said, "To look for a sign next time you want to let your son climb all over the displays in the store," and I walked away. She continued walking around with the kid, still crying, until she got to the one corner where we have some Legos for kids to play with while their parents wait to have their water tested or be helped. Mind you, the area was closed and had the lights shut off. The kid was screaming and said, "I want to play with those Legos." I wasn't even in the mood to say no, as long as it stopped him from crying. Then he started to carry them out from the designated area and throw them down the aisles at our toy displays. I had enough because I knew I was going to have to clean it up. I told him, "You are not allowed to take the Legos from the play area. Please put them back where you got them." Karen said, "Who do you think you are, talking to my son that way?" I said, "I'm simply telling you both that what he's been doing is not allowed in the store, and he needs to stop." Then Karen dropped the bomb and said, "Well, how dare you talk to us that way? I'll have you know that I'm the owner's daughter, and I'll have you fired for this. Mind you, the owners are my grandparents, and she sure as heck isn't my aunt." Karen walked up to Matt and said, "Have you heard how your employee talks to me? He's the rudest employee I've ever met, and as the owner's daughter, I demand that he get written up or be fired." Matt replied, "Well, I can't do that. I can't fire him because he's my boss." Karen finally shut up and looked at me while I grabbed the picture frame off the wall. I slid it in front of her and pointed to my label. My label had my name and the words "Assistant Manager" underneath my name and title. Her face turned every shade of red under the sun, and I said, "So, you mean to tell me that you're a long-lost aunt of mine? Because if not, you can get the heck out of the store." She practically dragged her kid out of the store while trying to run out the doors. She kept pushing on our doors, trying to get out, and they're pull doors, the things that some people say to get what they want. "I'm going to have you fired. I'm the owner's daughter." "No, you aren't, ma'am. Get out of my store." Imagine using that line and having it backfire on you. Oh, just thinking about the embarrassment that she must have felt makes me cringe. Silly, silly Karens. Next story. This isn't my story, but the story of my friend. A man who was, at the time, in his late 20s, well over 6 feet 4 inches tall, shy, and a hardcore gamer and metalhead. At the time, he was engaged to a princess who dreamed of a big wedding in Disney World. She wanted the big cake, the big dress, and would style her outfits every day so she would resemble a Disney princess. All was fine, her outfits were pretty cute. But the problem was, he was the only one working, yet she did a lot of the spending. When they first got engaged, she instantly began wedding planning, and things were getting ridiculously expensive, but he had little to no input whatsoever. After adding it all up and doing the budgeting, my friend finally spoke up and put his foot down. He's an easygoing guy and was happy for her to plan the whole thing how she wanted, and he knew she'd been planning this for years. The problem was he simply could not afford everything she wanted. He offered her a compromise. They could have a smaller wedding but the dream Disney honeymoon she wanted, and he even agreed that she could get the dream dress. The compromise was going well until she began picking out the groom's outfit. She wanted him to wear a white head-to-toe tweed suit and pink shoes to match her flowers. He agreed to try it on, and a few of his friends went with him for support. They all agreed it didn't look like him. As I mentioned earlier, he's a chill guy but very shy and introverted, and he felt very uncomfortable in that suit. He attempted another compromise. He would wear the shoes, but he wanted a black or gray, slightly more traditional outfit. This is when she flipped and had a major meltdown in front of his family and friends at a barbecue they were hosting when he tried on the suit and decided that he didn't want to wear it. Everyone assumed that was the end of it, but this had become a heated argument behind closed doors that we learned lasted for over 2 weeks. The first sign of a meltdown I heard was a loud scream in their garden. I was getting another beer at the time, so I came running outside to see what happened. The bride-to-be was on the floor, screaming and crying and literally throwing a tantrum like a small child. She had been trying to pressure him into wearing that suit again at the party by telling all his family about the suit and how he looked great in it. She had been going around the garden, trying to get people to convince him to man up and wear the suit. When he confronted her, this is when she let out a huge scream of anguish and threw herself to the floor in front of everyone. Stunned and confused, me and all the other guests just watched the events unfold. She claimed that if he loved her, he would wear the suit that she wanted and give her a bigger budget for the wedding because all these constraints and budgets were ruining her big day. I have never in my life seen this guy raise his voice or even defend himself, but he stood up for himself this day. He told her that it was just a suit and it's not her big day. It's meant to be their big day. He wouldn't feel comfortable in the suit, and she should respect that. I think she was just as shocked as we were, but then she pulled out the big guns of the argument. She gave him an ultimatum. If he wouldn't wear the suit, then the engagement was off and the relationship was over and he should leave now. This is when he began laughing, and I thought he'd actually lost it. He replied that it was his house. Apparently her name wasn't on anything inside the house, including the pets and the honeymoon they booked. He also called the engagement off and told her parents to take her home. They did, with her kicking and screaming. This memory always makes me laugh. My friend's okay. I'm not really sure what happened to her, but I know the only thing he gave back to her was her clothes, and that's it. I haven't seen or spoken to her since. I understand that, to many, a wedding day has to be the most fantastic, fabulous, perfect, most magical day ever. But if the engagement is called off and a relationship ends over what suit the groom has to wear, OP's friend has got to be wondering if he dodged a bullet on that one. Next story. My daughter had a friend over for a sleepover last weekend. They were both 13-year-old girls. It was all fairly standard stuff: watching movies, staying up too late, eating too much junk food. You know the drill. Both kids seemed to have a nice time, and the visiting kid was nice enough for someone else's teenage child. I didn't really think too much more about it until the friend's mother called me Sunday night, absolutely outraged over what I'd done while her child was in my care. Was it allowing them to stay up too late? Was it the junk food? Was it the choice of film I allowed them to watch? No, my crime was far worse than that. Imagine the mother's horror when she discovered that I had allowed her child to, wait for it, drink tap water. It turns out that only bottled water is acceptable for her family. Now, I know in some places there are issues with drinking tap water, but we live in an area with excellent tap water quality, so I was kind of baffled about what the issue was. I told her, our tap water is fine and your kid didn't say anything at the time. But oh no, that wasn't good enough. You see, tap water has toxins in it, it's not safe, and her family only drinks bottled water. She was, quote, frankly shocked and disturbed that her child was associating with a child of such an awful, awful parent, and that she, rest assured, would be calling CPS first thing Monday to have my child removed from such a harmful environment. I was just kind of stunned and didn't really say anything, and she hung up on me. I'd love to know where she thinks bottled water companies get their water from. And second, we're in Australia, and CPS isn't a thing here, so yeah, they're out there. Imagine getting CPS called on you for allowing your kids to drink tap water. I want to know what that phone call would be like. I want to report an awful, awful parent who is mistreating their children. Oh, why, of course, ma'am. Do you have any details on the situation? Oh, yes, the mother forces her kids to drink tap water. So, OP has an update to the story as well, and it reads, last night my wife and I went to a concert of a band that we've both idolized since childhood. My daughter and her friend from last week's incident have recently discovered the band and kind of fangirled out last weekend when we mentioned that we were seeing them this weekend. So, knowing that, we bought a bunch of overpriced merchandise, including a t-shirt for our daughter, and a matching one for her friend, the one with the crazy bottled water mother. I thought it would be a nice no-hard-feelings gesture, certainly to the kid, and hopefully to the mother. My daughter took off on her bike to her friend's house first thing in the morning to give her the shirt and to hang out listening to 40-year-old songs that were cool before I was born. So, guess who just called? Was she calling to say thanks for the nice gift for her kid and apologize for overreacting last weekend? No, she wasn't. She said, quote, her family doesn't need charity and she is more than capable of buying her child clothes if she needs them. And even so, she wouldn't buy her child clothes advertising something so vile and demonic. And I can rest assured that she has thrown the t-shirt into the garbage, and she'll thank me for staying out of her family's business. With that, she hung up on me. So yeah, she's a little out there. She knows she could have given OP's daughter the t-shirt to bring back home, right? And not have called OP to start all this drama? But that's not what entitled people do. They need to voice their opinions because they think it matters. Next story. So, I saw the absolute end-all be-all last week. I work for a small production company, and we do a ton of charitable work. That day, a few of our crew members, myself included, were lent out for a Make-A-Wish type thing for a girl whose wish was to have her original song made into a music video. She was battling cancer, so of course, every precaution had to be taken, COVID-wise. The director reserved a scenic section of the park and got all set up so we could be outdoors with plenty of distance. Apparently, this was the only section of the park with a picnic area. We weren't aware of this, and occasionally some people would come over, pretty miffed, asking why we reserved the whole picnic area. But before they could get the whole complaint out, they'd realize the situation and leave us be, embarrassed to have even asked. The young girl was around 14 or 15, and having a great time shooting these scenes for her music video, until Q Karen, a mess of cheap Botox and overpriced clothing, started crossing over our clearly marked barricades with her daughter, who was around 6 or 7, Our production assistant rushed over, figuring she was just too clueless to notice all of our signage and physical blockades, and explained in a hushed tone that she was intruding on a private film set. Karen replied, intentionally loudly, that this was a public park and she had every right to use any part of it that she pleased. Now, was it a tad bit inconvenient that we commandeered a large strip of public land, the only area with seating? Absolutely. But the handful of people who wandered over to complain immediately processed the nature of this project and gladly made other plans for themselves. Karen wasn't budging, but we had a permit from the city to be there, so we let her know that she could quiet down or leave. We actually had the right to have her ejected if she was being disruptive to our filming. We really didn't want to, though, and we didn't exactly have the manpower to do it without calling the authorities. We didn't want to put a damper on this fun event or make a scene in front of her daughter. So, the director paused filming to try to de-escalate things. There was supposed to be a liaison from the Make-A-Wish program there, but the catering guy had gotten lost along the way, and she'd gone out to look for him. So, the director showed Karen the permit we had, and warned her a final time that she either needed to watch calmly or get out of there. She pulled her young daughter off to the side and started trying to goad her into singing. The kid was better able to read the room than her mom because she was too embarrassed to start singing, and tried saying that she wanted to wait until she got home. But Karen kept pointing her phone camera at the kid, and shrieking that she wanted her to sing there so she could film it. Eventually she started playing some Disney song on her phone, and the kid began singing along, interrupting our footage, much to Karen's twisted satisfaction. Finally, the director had had it, and informed her that, even though she had technically moved off the land we physically reserved, the noise she and her daughter were generating was disruptive, so he could still have her removed. But Karen's pride wouldn't allow her to simply walk away from the situation. So, once her daughter had ceased this loud, off-key singing, she continued lingering as her child begged her to go play by a pond that was almost a quarter-mile away. Karen continually tried to force her daughter into the shot, with hopes that it would make us move, cruelly getting her kids' hopes up and dashing them repeatedly. She kept saying, "Look, baby, they're making a movie. Quick, go be in the movie so you can get famous. Hurry!" And the girl would run onto our set, or try to, and the production assistant would return her to her mom before she could run across our shot. But her daughter's cries of disappointment at not becoming famous each time we returned her to her mom were enough to render most of the footage, if not useless. I guess Karen didn't think we heard her goading her child into disrupting us with fake promises of stardom, because when the director came over to her for her final warning, she tried to play dumb and said, "Oh, I think she's just dead set on using the picnic space, since this is the only picnic space in the entire park. It would probably be easier for you to move, huh?" She said that with a combination of faux sweetness and imagined authority. Clearly, she had no idea what it takes to set up for a film if she thought we could just move locations on a whim. The director turned out to be bluffing about calling the cops because he didn't want to create a scene until the liaison returned. So, he just had a couple of big crew guys keep her and her daughter at bay. Eventually, the liaison did come back, but honestly, she wasn't particularly helpful. Karen deduced that she was the one who was in charge and magically shaped up the minute she appeared, standing quietly to the side. So when every crew member descended on the liaison at once, she just meekly said, "Well, it's fine if she watches, right? People are probably just curious about what's going on." Thankfully, the girl in the video had been having her makeup done for most of this while we filmed the backup dancer scene, so she didn't really notice most of the debacle and didn't care one way or another. Because Karen had a little kid with her, the girl didn't say she couldn't watch, even though she was visibly uncomfortable with the strange audience. She kept waving to and winking at the little girl, though, who thought she was some kind of celebrity. It was actually pretty cute and a perfect compliment to her music video. Karen hated that and kept muttering to passers-by, trying to stir up trouble. But unbeknownst to her, just about everyone in the general area was affiliated with our shoot. She did manage to find one or two people who were irritated about the picnic area being closed, thinking we were just some greedy private party who sectioned it off from the other guests. But then they realized there was some kind of film production and started milling around out of curiosity. She'd make the occasional comment to the other picnic people and was winning some of them over. She'd say something like, "But do they need the entire space? They aren't even using most of it." Then the star girl comes out for her big emotional dancing, and she's really giving it her all. So, Karen decides to throw in another blow by turning to a woman nearest to her and saying, again loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh goodness, look, it's one of those girls who thinks it's cool to pretend to be a boy. I'll bet she hasn't stopped to consider how long it'll take to grow her hair back." You'd think that Karen would have stopped for a second to consider that maybe the girl was not cultivating a chic new look, and in fact had cancer. Or better yet, that maybe a stranger's hairstyle wasn't her business in any case. But nope. So, Our poor starring girl hears this and crumples up into tears, now assuming that the crowds who had been gathered throughout the day were not doing so because they thought she was some famous pop star, but instead to gawk because she was strange-looking. She rushed away, and those standing anywhere near Karen hurried off to make it clear that they weren't associated with her. That's when the liaison realized what we'd been trying to warn her about with Karen's behavior and tore into her, along with several members of the girl's extended family. Like a true coward, Karen did not even apologize. She just bolted as quickly as she could, saying, maybe we'll find a different spot since you're clearly busy, as though she were doing us a special consideration. Luckily, our lead girl's entire extended family was there and cheered her up very quickly. Some supportive civilians had shown up with genuine curiosity about the film set and loved watching her dance, so she was happy and having fun again very quickly after Karen skulked off. But still, it was really quite a hurtful and inappropriate spectacle. If she gets this worked up over a picnic table, I can only imagine when her daughter starts to face life's real challenges. Leave it to a Karen to ruin a child's Make-A-Wish day. Guys, do you think this whole situation could have been avoided if the director had actually told Karen at the very beginning that it was for a Make-A-Wish day, instead of saying it was a private video shoot? Would that have mattered at all? Or would Karen have not cared one bit about a Make-A-Wish day? And here's how I see the story. These stories stir a mix of shock, amusement, and frustration in me, showcasing human behavior at its best and worst. The Kmart story with Father Time is wild. I can't imagine being a 17-year-old cashier expecting a sweet interaction, only to face an elderly man swinging a cane over a penny. His entitlement over an expired coupon is baffling, and I feel for the OP's shattered optimism. Retail workers deserve medals for handling such unpredictability. The free lunch was a small but kind gesture, though it doesn't erase the trauma. The pool store Karen story is peak petty revenge. I love how the OP turned the tables on the entitled owner's daughter with the assistant manager reveal. Her audacity to lie about her status and then fumble at the pull doors is comedy gold. I've dealt with similar bold-faced liars, and the satisfaction of calling their bluff is unmatched. It's a reminder that people will say anything to get their way, but facts don't bend. The wedding suit saga had me rooting for the groom. I get wanting a dream wedding, but the fiancé's tantrum over a suit and budget shows a lack of partnership. His calm, firm stand and ultimate decision to end the engagement were bold. I've seen relationships falter over less, and he definitely dodged a bullet. Weddings should be about mutual respect, not ultimatums. The tap water drama is absurd. I'm baffled by the mother's outrage over safe tap water and her CPS threat. It's unhinged. The t-shirt incident only cements her entitlement. I live in an area with great tap water, so this hits close to home. It's a lesson in picking battles wisely. The Make-A-Wish story infuriates me. Karen's disruption of a cancer patient's special day is heartless. Her cruel comment about the girl's appearance is indefensible. I think mentioning it was a Make-A-Wish event up front might have softened a normal person, but Karen's behavior suggests she wouldn't care. The girl's resilience, buoyed by her family, is the real triumph here. These stories highlight how entitlement can backfire spectacularly. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our Entitled People. If you guys missed yesterday's episode, check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.